The golden halls of the Galactic Senate stretched endlessly upward, disappearing into clouds of crystallized atmosphere. 2,000 species filled the tiered seats, their forms ranging from the serpentine velari to the crystalline shards of Proxima. At the center of it all, Supreme Chancellor Thexar stood on the speaking platform, his 4 arms spread wide as his voice boomed through the universal translators. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Empire," the Chancellor began, his purple scales shimmering under the artificial suns that lit the chamber. "Today marks a solemn occasion. After 3 standard cycles of investigation, the Science Council has confirmed what we have long suspected. The species known as humanity, designation Sol 3, has been officially classified as extinct." A ripple of murmurs swept through the assembly. Some species clicked their mandibles in what passed for sadness, while others simply recorded the information with mechanical precision. The humans had been gone for nearly 50 standard years, their home system dark and silent. Senator Krexall of the warrior caste stood, her armor clanking as she moved. "Chancellor, the humans were known for their resilience. Are we certain of this classification? They survived their own nuclear age, climate collapse, and 3 separate asteroid impacts. It seems premature to declare them extinct without bodies." The Chancellor's eyes, all 6 of them, focused on the senator. "The evidence is overwhelming. Earth lies barren, stripped of all technology and life signs. Their colonies in Alpha Centauri and Wolf 359 are empty shells. Their fleets, once numbering in the thousands, have vanished without a trace. Not a single human has been seen in any corner of the galaxy for half a century." From the scientific section, Dr. Velneem raised a tentacle. "My team has scanned every known human settlement with our most advanced sensors. We've found traces of a massive evacuation, but no destination. It's as if they simply vanished. The most logical conclusion is that they attempted some form of experimental FTL jump and were lost to subspace." "Good riddance," muttered Ambassador Zhek from the hegemony systems. "The humans were nothing but trouble. Always meddling, always fighting, never knowing their place in the order of things. The galaxy is better without their chaos." Several delegates voiced agreement, but others remained silent. The humans had been controversial members of the galactic community. They were young by galactic standards, having achieved FTL travel only 2 centuries ago. But in that short time, they had made their mark. They fought with a ferocity that shocked the warrior species, negotiated with a cunning that impressed the merchant guilds, and displayed a creativity that baffled the elder races. "The motion before us today," Chancellor Thexar continued, "is to officially reclassify human space as open territory, available for colonization by member species. Their technology, what remains of it, will be distributed according to the standard salvage protocols. Their cultural archives will be preserved in the Grand Library, a memorial to a species that burned bright but brief." The voting began, each species casting their decision into the central computer. The tally grew steadily in favor of the motion. It was a formality, really. The humans were gone, and the galaxy moved on. Life continued its eternal dance among the stars. As the final votes were being recorded, something changed in the chamber. The temperature dropped suddenly, frost forming on the breath of those species that still breathed. The lights flickered, not failing but seeming to bend away from a growing darkness near the main entrance. The massive doors of the Senate, each weighing several tons and protected by the finest security systems in the galaxy, began to groan. They shouldn't have been able to open during a session. The locks were quantum encrypted, the guards were the best the Empire could field, and the very space around the Senate was monitored by 1,000 defensive satellites. Yet the doors opened. What walked through them made every being in the chamber freeze in primal fear, their species' ancient instincts screaming warnings that predator had arrived. She was human in shape, but only just. Standing 7 feet tall, she moved with a grace that spoke of perfect control over every muscle, every movement calculated for maximum efficiency. Her skin was pale as starlight, marked with scars that seemed to shift and writhe in the changing light. Her hair was long and white, floating around her as if she stood in her own gravitational field. But it was her eyes that made even the bravest warriors step back. They were black. Not just the pupils, but the entire eye. Like looking into the void between stars. And in that darkness, points of light glowed like distant galaxies, constantly shifting and swirling. She wore armor that seemed to be made from the hull of a starship, twisted and reformed to fit her frame. It was scarred and pitted, telling the story of 1,000 battles. At her hip hung a weapon that hurt to look at, its shape seeming to exist in more dimensions than the mind could process. Energy crackled around her with each step, reality itself protesting her presence. The Senate guards rushed forward, weapons raised. They were the elite, each one capable of taking down a rampaging Gorvak beast single-handed. They didn't stand a chance. The woman moved, and the guards fell. She didn't seem to strike them, didn't fire a weapon, didn't even change her steady pace toward the center of the chamber. But as she passed, each guard simply collapsed, their armor cracking, their weapons turning to dust. One moment they were charging, the next they were unconscious on the floor, alive but defeated by something beyond their understanding. "Security alert!" Chancellor Thexar shouted, his voice cracking with fear. "Seal the chamber! Activate all defensive!" His words died as the woman spoke. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. Yet it reached every corner of the vast chamber with crystal clarity. It was a human voice, but layered with harmonics that suggested vast spaces, the echo of empty halls and dead worlds. "I am told," she said, each word dropping into the silence like stones into still water, "that you have declared humanity extinct." She continued her steady advance toward the central platform. Automated defense turrets emerged from hidden panels, targeting her with enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. They fired, filling the air with beams of coherent light and streams of plasma. The attacks simply curved around her, bending through space to strike the walls behind, leaving her untouched. She didn't dodge, didn't activate a shield. The universe simply refused to allow the attacks to reach her. "I am told," she continued, her voice never changing pitch or tempo, "that you plan to divide our worlds among yourselves. To pick over our bones like scavengers." She reached the first tier of seats. The delegates scrambled back, pressing against each other in their haste to get away. Senator Krexall, warrior born and bred, tried to stand her ground. She lasted 3 seconds before her courage broke, and she joined the retreat. "I am told," the woman said, now standing at the base of the central platform, looking up at Chancellor Thexar with those terrible galaxy-filled eyes, "that you think we are gone. That humanity has passed into history." She took one step up the platform stairs. The Chancellor's personal shield, strong enough to withstand a direct hit from a battleship's main gun, flickered and died. "My name," she said, taking another step, "is Baba Yaga. I am humanity's messenger. I am the witch in the woods, the thing that hunts the hunters, the nightmare that nightmares fear. I am the promise my species made to the dark between the stars." Another step. The Chancellor backed away, his forearms trembling. "And I am here," Baba Yaga said, now standing directly in front of the spiritual leader of 2,000 civilizations, "to tell you that you are wrong." She raised one hand, and the holographic displays around the chamber came to life without anyone touching the controls. Star maps appeared, showing systems throughout the galaxy, but these weren't the familiar, catalogued worlds of the Empire. These were dark spaces, the voids between spiral arms, the dangerous regions where sane species feared to tread. In those dark spaces, lights began to appear. 1, then 10, then hundreds, then thousands. Each light was a ship signature, each one reading as human design, but evolved, changed, adapted to conditions that would kill any normal vessel. "Humanity is not extinct," Baba Yaga said, her words filling the chamber like a prophecy. "We have been preparing, growing, becoming something new in the places you were too afraid to look." The lights on the display multiplied exponentially, millions of signatures now, spread across the galaxy's dark edges like a infection ready to spread. We left because we needed to change. Your rules, your limitations, your narrow view of what life should be. They were chains. So we broke them. We went into the dark, and we made it our home. We learned from it. We became it. She turned slowly, addressing the entire assembly. You think in terms of planets and systems. We think in terms of the spaces between. You build up. We spread out. You fear the void. We embraced it. More displays activated, showing human technology that defied understanding. Ships that seemed to be grown rather than built. Weapons that attacked the very fabric of space-time. Humans who had modified themselves in ways that challenged the definition of the species. For 50 years, we have watched you, tested you, judged you. Her voice grew harder, colder. Some of you passed. The Valari, who sent search parties even after we vanished. The Pentarch Collective, who maintained our embassy in their capital out of respect. The warrior caste, who refused to let our battle honors be forgotten. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembly. But most of you celebrated. Most of you were glad to see us gone. Most of you revealed your true nature the moment you thought we couldn't fight back. The temperature in the chamber dropped even further. Ice began forming on the walls. So here is humanity's message to the Galactic Empire, Baba Yaga said. We are not extinct. We are evolved. We are not gone. We are everywhere you're not looking. And we are not pleased with what we've seen. She stepped back from the Chancellor, who had pressed himself against his seat in terror. You have 1 standard year, she announced. Use it wisely. Prepare your people for our return. Change your ways, or face the consequences of your choices. We are no longer the naive species that joined your empire 2 centuries ago. We are something new. Something forged in the dark between stars. Something that has learned that sometimes, to save the light, you must become the darkness. She began walking back toward the entrance, each step echoing like thunder in the silent chamber. 1 year, she repeated without turning. That is humanity's mercy. That is our gift. Use it well. For when we return, we will remember who stood with us and who stood against us. We will remember who mourned our passing and who celebrated it, and we will respond accordingly. As she reached the doors, she paused and looked back one final time. For just a moment, her face softened, and something almost like sadness crossed her features. We didn't want this, she said quietly. We wanted to explore together, to build something beautiful among the stars. But you taught us a valuable lesson. In this galaxy, kindness is seen as weakness. Mercy is seen as opportunity. So we became what we needed to become. We became the thing you fear in the dark. We became your consequences. She walked through the doors, and they slammed shut behind her with a sound like the ending of worlds. The displays showing the human fleet went dark. The temperature slowly returned to normal, but the fear remained, settling over the assembly like a shroud. Chancellor Thexar stood on shaking legs, his scales pale with terror. He looked out at the assembly, at 2,000 species who had just received a message from the grave. The motion to declare humanity extinct, he said in a voice barely above a whisper, is withdrawn. No one objected. In the silence that followed, only one thought echoed through every mind in the chamber. What had they awakened in the dark? 6 months had passed since Baba Yaga walked into the Galactic Senate, and the Empire had not known a moment of peace since. Fear spread through the civilized systems like a virus, infecting every level of society. Parents told their offspring to behave, or the humans would come from the dark. Merchants nervously checked their manifests, wondering if they had ever cheated a human trader. Military commanders reviewed old battles, searching for any slight against humanity that might bring retribution. On the fortress world of Cathari Prime, Admiral Zektor stood before the assembled fleet commanders of the Empire. His chitinous body gleamed under the harsh military lights, all 4 of his arms clasped behind his back in a posture of authority he no longer felt. Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished others, he began, his compound eyes scanning the room. We are here to discuss the human situation. Intelligence reports have been troubling. He activated the central hologram, showing a map of the galaxy. The familiar spiral arms glowed with the light of member civilizations, but now the dark spaces between them pulsed with ominous red markers. These are confirmed sightings of human activity in the past 6 months. As you can see, they're everywhere we're not. The void between spiral arms, the dead zones around black holes, the radiation fields that would kill any sensible species. They've made homes in places we declared uninhabitable. Commander Threll of the Hegemony Forces leaned forward. How is that possible? The radiation alone in those sectors would destroy any known shielding technology within days. That's just it, the Admiral replied. It's not known technology. Our science teams have recovered fragments from their abandoned colonies. What they found defies conventional understanding. The humans aren't using shields, they're using something else, something that makes the radiation simply not matter. A murmur ran through the assembly. The implications were staggering. It gets worse, Zektor continued. We've lost 17 deep space monitoring stations in the past 3 months. No distress signals, no signs of attack. They simply stop transmitting. When we send ships to investigate, we find them intact but empty. No crew, no records, no explanation, just a message burned into the main view screen. We are watching. On the other side of the galaxy, in the crystal chambers of the Merchant Guild, a very different meeting was taking place. Trademaster Vel Nash nervously adjusted his environmental suit as he addressed the board of directors. The economic implications are catastrophic, he wheezed through his breathing apparatus. Half our trade routes pass through sectors now identified as having human presence. Our insurance companies are refusing to cover ships entering those areas. 3 major corporations have already declared bankruptcy, rather than risk encountering whatever the humans have become. But surely they can be negotiated with, suggested Director Prim. Humans were always reasonable traders. Perhaps if we offered reparations for any past grievances. Vel Nash shook his primary head. We tried. We sent a diplomatic vessel to the coordinates Baba Yaga provided. The crew was alive but refused to speak of what they saw. They've all since resigned and disappeared. The ship's logs were wiped except for a single entry. The old rules no longer apply. In the Senate chambers, Chancellor Thexar met daily with representatives from across the Empire. The confident leader who had stood ready to carve up human space was gone, replaced by a haunted figure who jumped at shadows. The Valari have had some success, he told the Emergency Council. Their search parties from 50 years ago apparently made contact with human refugees. They've received messages suggesting they will be remembered favorably. But even they know nothing of what humanity has become. They will be. I one of the Mender. We should strike first, growled General Krath from the warrior caste. Mass our fleets and burn out every dark sector where they hide. Better to fight now than wait for them to attack. Senator Krexel, who had been one of the few to question humanity's extinction, shook her head. You didn't see her, General. Baba Yaga walked through our best defenses like they were made of paper. Our weapons literally bent around her. If that's an example of what humanity has become, a frontal assault would be suicide. Then what do you suggest? Krath snarled. That we cower and wait for judgment? I suggest, Krexel said carefully, that we use the time they gave us to prepare for the possibility that we cannot win this conflict through force. Perhaps it's time to consider something our empire has rarely attempted. Genuine contrition. The room erupted in arguments. The empire had stood for 3,000 years. It had never apologized, never shown weakness, never admitted fault. To do so now, in the face of a threat from a species they had declared extinct, was unthinkable to many. Meanwhile, strange things began happening across the galaxy. Ships would report mysterious escorts through dangerous regions, invisible protectors that guided them past hazards. Pirates who had once preyed on human traders found their ships disabled by weapons that passed through their shields like they didn't exist. colonies that had shown kindness to human refugees received anonymous gifts of technology that solved long-standing problems. But for every act of seeming kindness, there were reminders of the threat. The colony on Xerxes VII, which had celebrated humanity's extinction with a festival, woke to find every electronic device displaying the same message. We remember, the corporate headquarters of Stellarian Inc., which had seized human patents after their disappearance, found their entire computer network infected with a virus that replaced all their data with recordings of the human families they had economically destroyed. Dr. Velnum, the scientist who had confirmed humanity's extinction, threw himself into research with desperate intensity. In his laboratory on the science station orbiting a dying star, he worked to understand what he had missed. "It's not possible," he muttered to his assistant, reviewing the data for the 1,000th time. "The energy signatures we're detecting from the dark sectors, they suggest the humans are tapping directly into quantum foam. They're using the uncertainty principle itself as a power source. It's madness. It should destroy them." His assistant, a young pentarch named Quill, examined the readings. "Unless they've found a way to exist partially outside normal spacetime. Look at these dimensional readings. It's as if they're not fully here anymore." Velnum's tentacles writhed in agitation. "You're suggesting they've become partially non-corporeal? That's fantasy, not science." "So was FTL travel, once," Quill reminded him. "The humans always had a talent for making the impossible merely difficult." Quote, "As the year progressed, the signs of humanity's presence grew stronger. Ghost signals appeared on communication networks, broadcasting images of empty human cities and abandoned worlds. But in each image, shadows moved just at the edge of perception, suggesting the cities weren't as empty as they appeared. Exploration ships reported finding human artifacts in impossible places. A survey team discovered human writing carved into rocks on a planet that had been lifeless for 1 billion years. Another found a human ship embedded in an asteroid that predated humanity's evolution by millions of years. When questioned about these paradoxes, the only response was another message. Time is just another dimension. We've learned to walk in all of them. The military grew increasingly paranoid. Training exercises would be interrupted by sensor ghosts that resembled human ships but vanished when approached. Weapon tests would fail catastrophically, with targeting systems refusing to lock onto anything resembling human technology. One admiral reported that his flagship's AI had started responding to commands with, "I would prefer not to," a phrase traced back to ancient human literature. Trade routes began collapsing as fear overtook greed. No one wanted to risk traveling through areas where humanity might be watching. The economy of the empire, built on the assumption of safe passage between member worlds, started to crumble. In desperation, the Senate authorized a project to create weapons specifically designed to fight the evolved humans. The best scientists from 100 worlds gathered on a secret research station to develop countermeasures. They lasted 2 weeks before the station was found empty, all research destroyed, and a single message left behind. "Did you really think we weren't watching? Did you really think we'd let you prepare weapons against us? We gave you a year to change, not to arm yourselves. You're wasting time." Religious movements sprang up across the empire. Some preached that humanity had transcended mortality and become dark gods. Others claimed this was punishment for the empire's sins. The Church of Human Mercy gained millions of followers, preaching that only by acknowledging their wrongs could the empire hope for forgiveness. The hegemony, always pragmatic, began secretly reaching out to any human contacts they could find. They offered resources, technology, even entire systems as reparations. The responses they received were cryptic. Too little. Too late. Wait for the return. As the year entered its final month, paranoia reached a fever pitch. 17 different species announced they were withdrawing from the empire, hoping to negotiate separate peaces with humanity. The Senate met in emergency session daily, accomplishing nothing but arguments and recriminations. Then, with just 2 weeks left in the promised year, everything changed. The ghost signals stopped. The mysterious sightings ended. The dark sectors went silent. It was as if humanity had suddenly vanished again, leaving only the growing dread of their return. Chancellor Thexar stood before the Senate, his once proud bearing now stooped with the weight of fear and responsibility. "Fellow beings," he said, his voice echoing in the chamber where Baba Yaga had delivered her warning. "We have failed to use this year wisely. We have plotted and schemed and prepared for war instead of examining our own actions. We have learned nothing except fear." "What would you have us do?" demanded Ambassador Jek. "Grovel before a species we thought dead? Abandon 3,000 years of tradition and strength? I would have us survive," the Chancellor replied simply. "And I fear our traditions and strength will not save us from what we face." Senator Krexall stood. "There is still time. Not much, but some. I propose we use these final days to do what we should have done from the beginning. Let us examine our actions. Let us acknowledge our failures. Let us prepare not for war, but for judgment." "And if they show no mercy?" General Krath asked. Krexall's armor caught the light as she turned to face him. "Then we face the consequences of our choices." As Baba Yaga said, "We taught them that kindness is weakness. Perhaps it's time we learned we were wrong." The debate raged on. But underneath it all, every being in the chamber knew the truth. The year was almost over. Humanity was coming back, and the empire that had so casually declared them extinct was about to discover what it meant to be on the other side of that judgment. In the dark spaces between stars, something stirred. The evolved humans, changed by 50 years of exile and transformation, prepared for their return. They had watched, they had judged. And now, as the final days ticked away, they made ready to show the galaxy what humanity had become. The Empire held its breath and waited for the storm to break. The final day arrived with all the weight of an executioner's axe. Across the Empire, billions of beings watched the skies, waiting for the storm that had been promised. Military fleets held position at maximum alert, weapons charged and shields raised against an enemy they didn't understand. Civilian populations huddled in shelters, praying to whatever gods they believed in for mercy. At exactly the moment the year ended, every star in the galaxy seemed to pulse in unison. It lasted only a second, but every living being felt it. A wave of something that passed through shields and walls and flesh itself. Then, silence. Chancellor Thexar stood in the Senate chamber, the same place where Baba Yaga had delivered her warning. The assembled representatives of 2,000 species waited with him, having decided that if judgment was coming, they would face it together. The temperature began to drop, just as it had a year ago. But this time, it wasn't just one door that opened. Every entrance to the chamber swung wide simultaneously, and through them came the humans. They were no longer the species the galaxy remembered. Each one was unique, adapted to wherever they had made their home in the dark. Some were giants, their bodies reinforced to survive crushing gravity. Others were wraith-like, translucent, existing partially in other dimensions. Some had merged with technology so completely it was impossible to tell where flesh ended and machine began. But it was their eyes that marked them all as human. In every face, no matter how changed, burned the same fierce intelligence, the same indomitable will that had carried their species from the caves of Earth to the stars. They filled the aisles and galleries, thousands of them, each moving with purpose but without hostility. They didn't speak, didn't threaten. They simply took position and waited. Then Baba Yaga entered. She hadn't changed, still the same terrifying fusion of human potential and otherworldly power. She walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the silence, and surveyed the assembly with those galaxy-filled eyes. 1 year, she said simply. We gave you 1 year. Tell me, Chancellor Thexar, what has the Empire done with our gift? The Chancellor stepped forward, his forearms trembling but his voice steady. We have learned fear. We have learned what it means to be powerless, to wait for judgment from a force we cannot fight or flee. We have learned what we taught you 50 years ago. Fear? Baba Yaga tilted her head. Is that all? Senator Krexall stood, her warrior's pride overcoming her terror. No. Some of us have learned more. We've learned regret. We've learned that our strength made us cruel, our power made us callous. We declared you extinct because it was easier than acknowledging our relief that you were gone. And what of the others? Baba Yaga asked, her gaze sweeping across the assembly. What of those who celebrated our absence? Who divided our legacy before our bodies were cold? Ambassador Zhek of the hegemony rose on unsteady legs. I was wrong. We were wrong. We saw your passion as instability, your adaptability as chaos. We feared what you might become, so we were glad when you disappeared. But this year has shown us that our ordered galaxy, our perfect systems, made us stagnant. You grew in the dark while we rotted in the light. More voices joined in. Species after species stood to acknowledge their failures, their prejudices, their relief at humanity's disappearance. It wasn't pretty or dignified. Some wept, others raged. Many simply spoke in monotones of shame and recognition. When the last voice fell silent, Baba Yaga nodded slowly. Now you begin to understand. But understanding is not enough. You must see. She raised her hand, and the chamber transformed. Reality bent and twisted, and suddenly the assembly was no longer in the Senate. They stood in the ruins of Earth, the human homeworld as it was now. The sky was dark with ash, the oceans gone, the continents cracked and broken. This is what we left behind, Baba Yaga said, her voice carrying across the desolate landscape. Our birth world, dead. Not from war or disaster, but from trying to fit into your empire. Your regulations said we couldn't repair our climate without approved technology. Your laws said we couldn't evacuate our population without proper permits. Your bureaucracy moved slower than our world was dying. The scene shifted. Now they stood on a human colony world, watching as alien administrators seized homes and businesses. You called it proper integration, Baba Yaga continued. You said our economic systems were chaotic, needed to be brought in line with galactic standard. Families that had worked land for generations were displaced because they couldn't afford the new tax structures. Children starved while waiting for aid applications to process through 17 levels of bureaucracy. Another shift. A human exploration vessel, surrounded by Empire military ships, we found new worlds in the dark sectors, places no one else wanted. But you said we were expanding too fast, claiming too much. You destroyed ships full of colonists because they hadn't filed the proper paperwork. You called it maintaining order. We called it murder. The visions continued, each one a dagger of shame to the watching assembly. Humanity hadn't left by choice. They had been driven out by 1,000 cuts, 1,000,000 small cruelties, an empire that saw their vibrant chaos as a threat to its ordered existence. So we went into the dark, Baba Yaga said as the visions faded and they returned to the Senate chamber. We found the places you feared, the spaces between spaces, the void that watches back, and there, free from your rules and restrictions, we became what we were meant to be. She gestured to the transformed humans filling the chamber. We are explorers of impossible places. We are the bridge between what is and what could be. We are the children of Earth, and we have grown beyond your comprehension. Will you destroy us? Chancellor Thexar asked, his voice barely a whisper. Baba Yaga smiled, and it was perhaps the most terrifying thing she had done yet. Destroy you, Chancellor? We could have done that at any time in the past year. We could do it now with a thought, but that would make us like you were to us. No, we have something else in mind. She turned to address the entire assembly. The Galactic Empire is ending. Not in fire and blood, but in transformation. You have grown stagnant in your perfection, cruel in your order, so we offer you a choice. The transformed humans throughout the chamber began to speak in unison, their voices creating a harmony that seemed to resonate with reality itself. Join us in the dark between stars. Learn to see the universe not as territory to be claimed, but as a mystery to be explored. Accept that chaos and order must dance together, that growth requires risk, that mercy is the greatest strength. Or, Baba Yaga continued as the harmony faded, remain as you are. Keep your empire, your order, your stagnation. But know that we will be watching from the dark. Every cruelty will be answered. Every injustice will be balanced. Every species you declare extinct will find sanctuary with us. You will never again be able to hide behind bureaucracy and law to justify suffering. And if we choose to join you? Senator Krexel asked. Then you evolve, Baba Yaga replied. Not into what we are, but into what you could be. Each species unique, each culture preserved, but all working together to explore the infinite possibilities of existence. No more declarations of extinction, no more dividing the dead. Instead, a galaxy where diversity is strength and change is celebrated. The silence that followed was profound. 2,000 species considering a future beyond everything they had known. Finally, it was the Valari ambassador who spoke first. The Valari choose evolution. We searched for you because we recognized kindred spirits. We will not lose you again. The Pentard Collective was next. We maintained your embassy out of respect. Now we understand it was hope. We choose to grow. One by one, choices were made. Some species chose immediately, eager to escape the stagnation they had felt, but couldn't name. Others hesitated. Generations of tradition warring with the promise of something new. The warrior caste chose evolution, recognizing in humanity's transformation the ultimate expression of adaptive warfare. The merchant guilds chose change, seeing new opportunities in the spaces between stars. Even the hegemony, proud and rigid, eventually chose transformation over stagnation. In the end, only a handful refused. Small species, too set in their ways, or too afraid of change to take the leap. Baba Yaga looked at them with something almost like pity. Then go, she said. Maintain your small empires, your ordered worlds. But remember, we will be watching. And the moment you harm another, the moment you declare another species extinct for your convenience, we will return. The refusing species fled the chamber, leaving the vast majority who had chosen change. What happens now? Chancellor Thexar asked. Now, Baba Yaga said, we teach you to walk between stars. We show you the dark that isn't empty, the void that teems with life. We introduce you to the species you declared extinct, who found refuge with us. We begin the real work of building a galaxy worth living in. The transformed humans began moving among the assembly, each one approaching species they would guide into the new reality. There was no conquest, no subjugation, just the offering of hands to help others take the first step into a larger universe. Will we become like you? A young Valari asked one of the transformed humans. No, the human replied, their voice carrying harmonics of distant stars. You'll become the best version of what you are. We don't seek to make humanity of you. We seek to help you find your own path to transcendence. As the great transformation began, Baba Yaga walked back to the center of the chamber. She looked up at the space where, a year ago, vote tallies had declared humanity extinct. Let it be recorded, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the galaxy, that on this day, the Galactic Empire chose not extinction, but evolution. Let it be known that mercy conquered fear, that diversity defeated conformity, that the dark between stars became a bridge rather than a barrier. She smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes, galaxies swirling with what might have been joy. Welcome, she said to the assembly, to the galaxy, to the future itself, to what comes next. In the years that followed, historians would mark this as the day the true galactic civilization began. Not an empire of rigid hierarchies and enforced order, but a commonwealth of infinite diversity, each species unique, but united in their quest to explore the mysteries of existence. The dark sectors became highways of impossible transit. The void between galaxies became stepping stones to unimaginable destinations. Species that had stagnated for millennia suddenly burst forth with new ideas, new technologies, new philosophies. And watching over it all, the evolved humans served as guides and guardians, ensuring that never again would a species be declared extinct for convenience. Never again would potential be crushed by bureaucracy. They had gone into the dark as refugees and returned as teachers. They had been declared extinct and proved themselves eternal. They had shown the galaxy that sometimes, to find the light, you must first embrace the darkness. The last entry in the official Senate records, before the old empire dissolved and the new Commonwealth began, was a simple statement. Humanity status, extinct classification reversed. New classification, transcendent. May we all follow their example. And in the spaces between stars, where reality bent and possibility danced, Baba Yaga smiled and continued her eternal watch. The witch in the woods had become the guardian of the galaxy, and the monsters in the dark had become the lights that guided the way home.